Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Most federal employees don't think about unemployment insurance until a shutdown forces them to. With outdated systems and confusing eligibility rules, navigating support can be slow and frustrating. Here to walk through what furloughed workers need to know is Senior Fellow at the National Academy of Social Insurance, Michelle Evermore. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
We are obviously in the midst of another government shutdown. Even if Congress passes another continuing resolution quickly, we could be right back here in a few weeks. What does this kind of instability mean for federal workers who are trying to access unemployment or other benefits?
We're in a really unique moment right now because not only do we have this shutdown where people may be trying to access unemployment, but we've also got the deferred resignation people who may or may not be eligible for unemployment also trying to get into the system. And unemployment and compensation for federal employees is a little bit more complicated for state agencies than regular unemployment. And that's because the federal government doesn't pay taxes for unemployment insurance like most employers do. They reimburse instead once somebody gets a benefit. That means unemployment insurance agencies don't actually have any wage records for you if you're a federal employee. And so they don't have basic information about how much you earned. So that's all on the claimant to prove.
And remind us, if someone is a federal worker and they are going to apply for unemployment, where do they apply?
They should apply in their duty station, wherever they worked. And your duty station will be on your SF-8 and SF-50. Both of those forms, hopefully everybody printed out before the government shut down, as well as 18 months of pay stubs.
We're talking about people all across the country, 100,000 folks on the DRP all across the country, furloughed feds all across the country. What is the capacity of state unemployment offices to handle this influx of claims all at once?
So state unemployment insurance agencies have been historically underfunded. They entered the pandemic at a 50-year low in funding. Now, while they've gotten increases for a couple of years, they are still, it's flat funded right now. And so these are also government workers who, we all know how that feels to be in a place where you've got too much work to do with too little funds to fund your work.
So how should people be thinking about the timeline for applying for unemployment and when they might expect to get a claim settled?
I would encourage people to apply today, the first day that they're unemployed. Normally, there's a rule around collecting unemployment benefits. The Social Security Act says that people are supposed to receive benefits when due. And when due has been ruled to mean within 14 to 21 days. But state unemployment insurance agencies have not been paying benefits on time since the start of the pandemic. They're still cleaning out all of that backlog work. So it might take up to a month to get a benefit, maybe even more. So people should apply right away.
And one of the things that impacts furloughed employees is a waiting week, right? Can you tell us about what the waiting week is and how that comes into play?
Sure. Most states have a waiting week. Not every state, but most states have a waiting week, which means you apply, your eligibility may or may not be established, but you will not get benefits for the first week that you're unemployed.
And so as people are thinking about filing their claim, they should know that whenever it gets settled, that first week doesn't count?
That's correct.
All right. So it can be complicated to know where to file, when to file, all the paperwork to file. What else do folks need to know as they're thinking about filing for unemployment?
One thing I would say to people is do not forget your password. Make sure you write all that stuff down. Make sure you have all your paperwork with you before you even start to file, because you could get timed out of application. And, some states do not allow for an easy password reset. And so if you get timed out and you can't remember your password, you may have to call in and physically talk to somebody who will then put a password in the mail for you. So it could take days to get back into your account if you forget your password.
That seems like really important advice. I was speaking with Michelle Evermore. She's a senior fellow at the National Academy of Social Insurance. Michelle, we're talking about furloughed federal employees being able to file for unemployment. They're going to get back pay at some point. Does that mean that they might have to pay back unemployment benefits?
Absolutely. So people who get back pay for the time that they were unemployed or furloughed will have to pay back the state unemployment insurance agency. So just keep that in mind that this is almost more of a loan than a benefit for federal employees on furlough.
Does that mean that folks should think about how urgent this is for them? Should they avoid it if they can?
I think that this is more of an issue for the lowest income federal employees. I mean, when you look at the maximum weekly benefit amounts in various states, it really doesn't replace that much of income. In Washington, D.C., the maximum weekly benefit amount is $444. In Maryland, it's $430. And in Virginia, it just went up to $378. So we're not talking about huge sums of money, but this will help people on the lowest end of the income spectrum maybe, float through this difficult time.
That's really helpful. And one other question about status here. OMB is talking about the potential of RIFs of furloughed individuals. How should people be thinking about their status when that part is so uncertain? And if they're RIF, does that change what benefits they might be eligible for?
Yeah, again, this is where I encourage people to apply right now, whether they know what's going to happen to them or not, because it takes a few weeks to get benefits. And if people don't know whether they're going to be permanently laid off or just on furlough for right now, it's good to just get things in progress so that once that becomes more clear, you're at least in line.
Are there specific categories of workers like seasonal employees or contractors who are especially vulnerable under these conditions?
I'm not really sure what is intended here with some of these long-term layoffs. I don't feel like the threat of long-term layoffs of furloughed employees is any more legal than the previous layoffs have been. So, I really can't say for sure there.
Are there policy reforms that you would suggest that might make unemployment systems and federal benefit programs more resilient and accessible?
Absolutely. I think unemployment insurance right now doesn't replace as much of lost income as it historically has. It doesn't reach enough people, and administrative processes have become much harder. Not necessarily harder, but they've never modernized in many ways. And so, the process is very difficult, and it just does not reach enough people or pay enough of prior income. So we should really be thinking about increasing maximum weekly benefit amounts and replacement of income.
Well, the pandemic was really a stress test for the unemployment systems across the country. And people may not realize that unemployment systems are state-based, not federal-based. Have you seen much improvement in state administration of unemployment since the pandemic?
Absolutely. So I think that, states really realize that they need to start updating their technology in a more modern way. When I was at the United States Department of Labor, we worked very closely with states to improve their application processes and their technology and the sort of behind the scenes work that goes on to get people approved for an unemployment benefit. And so I guess you will see people getting through the system faster than probably they did in 2019, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
At this point, as we are at the beginning of a shutdown and no one really knows how long it will last, are there other benefit programs that you want to make sure people are aware of?
Well, I think people should understand there's also food assistance programs, SNAP. There are a wide variety of other benefit programs available that people should be, once they complete their unemployment insurance application, reaching out to their state government to find out about.
As they're reaching out to state government, can you point them in the right direction? Who should be their first point of contact to be exploring these kinds of benefits?
Every state is different. Some states have sort of ombuds programs that help people navigate once they become unemployed. But I do think that the first front door that people should go to once they lose work is the unemployment system. Unemployment systems have been trying to connect and be a little bit more interoperable with other programs, but that's been a pretty limited thing. So I would encourage people also to be aware of legal aid. So state legal aid societies really help people navigate these benefit systems, and they are wonderful people to work with.
I've been speaking with Michelle Evermore. She's a senior fellow at the National Academy of Social Insurance. Michelle, thanks for this really practical advice at a time when there's a lot of stress and uncertainty. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Listen to the Federal Drive on your schedule. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.